Jeff Ulbrich, thank you for sitting down with me. I don't know if you remember this. I'm sure you do. It's only been 365 days. But this time last year, we were sitting in these very seats in this very studio, introducing you as the new defensive coordinator full-time for the Atlanta Falcons. As you think back to where this unit is a year later, what are some of the things, the buckets that you're most proud of the work that went into the last year?
Yeah, like as a collective defensive staff, we came here with a lot of ideas and guys that have been exposed to a lot of systems and a lot of ways to do things, and in that was very exciting. But it's you're diving into some uncharted waters when you do that, when you start combining stuff that has never necessarily been combined. And it was interesting, and I had said it early on that I thought we were gonna have some early success because we were such an unknown to the opponent. And we did. I thought we came out and played really good football that first quarter of the season. Minnesota pops in my head, and there's some teams, and I think the stats would back that up. I mean, we were number one in a lot of metrics through the first quarter of the season. We hit the San Fran game, and that's when I think the Snakes started to get exposed a little bit. Plus, Devine got hurt and some things happened, but and in that, I started to learn some of the flaws or the Snakes or whatever you want to say in regards to some of the stuff I wasn't familiar with from a schematic standpoint. And in that, we had some real tribulations and we had some struggles, and we went through a period of time there where we didn't play the greatest of defense middle of the season. The beauty of all that was I felt like because we had such a group, not only players but coaches alike, that was so constantly self-scouting, constantly analyzing what we were doing, good, bad, and indifferent, everything in between, that we found this sweet spot the last 4 or 5 games where we found how to really combine the front system, how to combine the coverage system, how to combine the two kind of worlds that we were trying to combine the entire season. And in that, for sure, I'm proud, but I'm also excited because I think we are just like, it's the tip of the iceberg as far as where we can take this group.
I'm glad that you brought that up because in one of your final press conferences of the 2025 season, I think it was actually the last day of the year, was you made the comment that you always felt like real growth occurred when you reflected on the season and when you go back, take a breath, can look at things from a 5,000-foot view and assess what happened without being in what happened.
That's right.
I'm curious, as you went back through, you've alluded to this, but as you went back through that process, what were some key things that stuck out to you?
Well, we're still in that process now, and we'll be in that process for the next month or so of really analyzing what we did well and what we didn't do well, where we got to improve, and what's going to stay part of this system, what are we going to delete, where we have to explore. It's a really exciting time of the year because it's like you said, in the season, it's almost like you're getting drowned in regards to really analyzing what you're doing because you're just trying to stay above water, and in that, you don't always see with the clarity that you need to see the entire package and where we want to take it, and but that's where we're going now. Now, it's interesting because in the past I've always said this is our system, this is the players we need for our system, and it was so black and white.
Right. Yeah.
What we did last year by combining the system and creating a little bit more multiplicity than I've ever been around, it allows us to have a little bit more flexibility in free agency, the draft, et cetera, et cetera. So we're in that process now where I think Ian and his staff and the coaching staff and Kevin and everybody in between, we've got a little bit more flexibility than I've ever had. So it can be more about the best player, the best rusher. It's not necessarily 6'3", 255. There's a little bit looser parameters. And in that, now that we have the flexibility and the multiplicity that we've built here, we can really fine-tune the scheme to the players we end up having. And I've never had that type of flexibility, so I'm excited about that.
How do you think that has evolved kind of your philosophy even as a coach to kind of, I don't need this exact body type, this exact person,
right,
but what I need is someone who can do a bit of everything?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily, not to disagree, but I don't necessarily completely agree with that.
Less about versatility and more about multiplicity.
That's right.
Yeah,
we want to find guys that have superpowers.
Yeah.
sometimes when you get a collection of too many guys with versatility, you don't have a true calling card.
Right.
You're good at everything. You're not great at anything, you know? So I think it's in the process now of really trying to find the best players, and then once we do, the best, like for example, the easiest one for me to point to is the pass rusher. In the past, it was like I needed this 4-3 end,
right,
you know, because we played 4-down spacing, blah, 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 whatever. And now we're in this space of like, let's say, like in the past, like a Micah Parsons. I know this sounds crazy to the normal fan, but like a Micah Parsons, in my old system, you might have passed on because it was like, I'm talking about the Penn State Micah Parsons. I'm not talking about the Micah Parsons that we all know now, you know, but.
Going back in draft time.
That's right, because it was like, he wasn't big enough to be a 4-3 end. He didn't look like a true stacked backer, so I didn't necessarily have a place for him. Whereas now, like, we would love to have a guy like that, you know?
Course, yeah.
Like Nick Bonito necessarily. I don't know where he would have fit in New York when I was there. But that's what's exciting.
Right, yeah. So I was actually, and this all I think kind of works off of each other, I think I was actually a bit surprised how much installing y'all did last year with what you were wanting to do schematically. And I think you even said like that it really was a year one, because what they had done previously was vastly different than what you were wanting to do last year. And I think you said everything was new, literally everything. So when you now have the chance to continue to build on like continuity from like year one to have the chance to go into year two with a lot of the same group, a lot of the same names, a few of the same coaches, what does that mean to you?
It's huge. It gives us the opportunity to take this thing to another place. You know, year one, it's typically getting all the players and maybe a few coaches up to speed on a scheme that you're very familiar with. Whereas last year was all of us learning,
right,
myself included. And in that it was scary and it was hard at times and it didn't always look really good. But I really believe we created a product and we created a defense that's very unique, that can give offenses a lot of problems. A lot of multiplicity, and I already said a lot of flexibility for the organization to build it the right way. And saying all of that, I think, for me, the biggest thing is always the style of play. Above scheme, above personnel, it's like, what does the general fan walk away saying about us? Not necessarily the stats and all that, but like, what do we stand for? And I've spoken this a million times. I feel like, and to really, understand if they've got it or not, you got to ask them. But I think the players really embrace this concept of heart, mind, fist.
Yeah.
This concept of like, we're going to strain to demonstrate our love for this game and our love for the teammate. Mentally, we're gonna learn and we're gonna create some mastery where we, maybe we knew everything at a surface level. We're gonna know it at the deepest level. Every snake in the grass. We're gonna know what makes us special, what doesn't, where it's strong, where it's weak, et cetera, et cetera. And then the physicality part of things. I think they all started to understand it's not just about pounding my chest, about being the most physical, but there is a piece to that
right,
that's important. But there's also the piece that when you're worried about me and you're worried about your personal health, like, we got you,
yeah,
and in those three ways, I think that's where the growth will really, really occur, because I think they fully grasp that. They understand that we never wavered or deviated from it, and that'll always be our calling card. That'll always be our foundation.
So I hate calling a franchise record in sacks like low-hanging fruit, but it is one of those things where it's like everyone wants to talk about that part of what this defense was in 2025. I think it's more about like kind of installing that attack style front, and to your point of like, this is who we are and this is who we're gonna be. Along those same lines of like, y'all knew who y'all wanted to be up front. What's kind of the next step for a group that broke a franchise record last year?
As far as like the rush is concerned,
Yep.
And I've said in the past, like, I think the greatest defenses from a rush perspective, they win with their front four. Now, I'm not saying our front four wasn't capable of doing that, but I did pressure early on just because guys were still figuring it out, myself included.
Right.
And in that, we pressured at a higher rate than I'd ever pressured. I would like us to grow into a defense that doesn't have to lean on the pressure as much. I'd like to become a type of defense where we have these elite coverage packages that give just quarterback fits. And then ultimately we have 4 guys that are just the best rushers on earth, you know, and when we put that together, to me, that's sustainable championship defense. So that's where we need to grow.
So Kevin Stefanski said in his introductory press conference that even though the two of you had not worked in a building before, everything that he heard and everything that he saw about you made him feel that y'all are cut from the same cloth in terms of how you see the game, in terms of how you teach the game. I'm curious, from your perspective in the early days of working with him, do you connect with that? And what are kind of some examples early on of that?
I've just been blown away at the humility. You know, it seems like there's 10 questions before he says anything back. You know, he's observing and he's got, you know, unbelievable humility and but also have this, you know, he has this very clear vision of every single step and what he wants it to look like. So in that, I'm excited. I'm really excited to and I was excited when I got here too. I don't want to, you know, not show appreciation because I love Ra like a brother, and I grew to really love and respect Terry as well. So as excited I was for them, I'm excited about this. It's a different tree of coaching, a different way of thought in some ways, very similar in some ways as well. But I think he's got a clear vision and maybe a unique, different vision than I've been around. So I'm super excited just to be around him. So far, just been blown away at the clarity and the vision that he has.
Last question, I'll get you out of here. If we're having the same conversation, we're sitting down in these seats a year from now, what do you hope that we're talking about in terms of your unit?
That heart, mind, fist is ultimately like the analytics, the stats. They matter because there's something powerful about them. And do we want to be the number 1 defense in the NFL? There's no doubt. Like, we want to be the defense that is feared, that carries this team to a place it's never been before, and to win a world championship. But at the end of the day, like, the winning is all that matters. You know, the winning and the style of play, to me, are the 2 things that I'd like to say a year from now really come to life. I think we planted some seeds, and I can't wait to see those seeds grow.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Absolutely.